But that's not how righteousness works. What happens is I get actual healing. Let's say I have kidney disease. So what happens? Christ gives his kidney for me. Just like God gave his life for us in sin. He gives his life / his kidney to me so that I might live. God gave his life so that I might live from sin. Does that make more sense? Now, if I read in Romans, he's saying that also, but it's more turned in legal ways, and sometimes it's like, I can't quite relate to that. And that's why as we continue to grow, we learn more and realize, hey, yeah, it's not just changing my record, because if God just changes my record and I still have, cancer or kidney disease, it hasn't been fixed. So God actually comes and changes us. It's an actual transformation through his blood, not just a legal exchange. It's an actual change. And guess what? The record we have in heaven is just an accurate recording of what goes on in our life. Meaning to say, what God changes is what happens in our life, not just some record book in heaven. Think about that. Because when I was a PK, I am still a PK, but growing up, somehow I had it in my mind, even though it was never taught specifically that, I just need to pray at the right time, and then God will save me. I always thought like, okay, I could mess around, I could be the bad Adventist, until the pouring of the latter rain, then I have to be good. I was trying to cheat the system. When in fact, as I read my Bible today, like, no, that's not how it works. God wants an actual relationship with us. God wants an actual transformation of us. That's why the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He fulfills your needs. But you should be contented. If you're not content, what happens? Verse 2. Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. Have anyone who lie down in green pastures? Maybe when I was a kid, those green pastures look really green. Coming here to New York City, I don't really, maybe I should put a blanket, go to Central Park. It's pretty green. But it's probably not as what they imagined in the Bible, right? It was probably a lot more cleaner. It was a lot more nicer. You have to think about that. Like, he made me lie down in green pastures. This is like total bliss. I've been to a few places that are like, this is awesome. Like, I could just leave my job and stay here forever. And one of those places in Hawaii, there's a spot in Hawaii. I can't even mention the names because it has so many syllables. Pala'illos, that's my wife for a minute. But anyway, it was a beach next to a waterfall, and you could just set up a hammock and And that's what I see there, even though specifically it's not green pastures. The thought there that the psalmist was writing down is like, when God leads you, you could relax in this place. This is who God is. He guides you, he gives you content, he makes you lie down in green pastures. What happens next in the text? Psalm 23. Wait. Let's go back. I think we skipped a few ones. So, the Lord my shepherd, I shall not want. He made me lie down in green pastures. He restored my soul. He leadeth me. He leads me beside still waters. Now, usually, we live in Harlem, so the waters there seem pretty still. It doesn't get pretty wild, but I've lived in the Philippines and I've seen water that has not been still. And it gets scary. The most terrified I've ever been in my life was during that Hurricane Ida 2021. Remember, we were living in the Bronx at the time, in the basement. And we lived in the Philippines, I lived in the Philippines for 12 years. Never had to evacuate during flooding. I come here to New York City, I live in the basement, I have to evacuate because our basement is flooding. I open the door, water comes in. I don't know if you know that time, there are people here in Queens who died in their basement. I was terrified. It was the most scared I've ever been in my life. My wife calls 911, the service is dead. They can't even help you because they're so overwhelmed. We end up going in our car, rushing to Manhattan. We had a friend at the time who lived on the second floor, not the basement. So we rushed to her house. As soon as we parked, the trees were falling. We were not supposed to drive because I was driving the wrong side of the road on FDR because they closed the way. So luckily, police catch me, but where we were supposed to go. We made it to safety and everything, and looking back, we could that was awesome. But at the time, those were not still waters. So when he leads you outside still waters, no matter what waters you're facing, no matter what trials you're facing, that's who Jesus is. He can make it seem like those waters are actually still. It's like that saying, like a duck. On top of the surface, the duck looks peaceful. Have you seen a duck out of water? They look like they're struggling. Maybe if they're running away or something. But underneath the surface, they're massively battling. There's a lot of effort. So when God leads us beside still waters, maybe it's not so much that everything is okay, but it's more of giving you the strength to make sure you can deal with those waters, right? He leads me beside the still waters, He restore my soul. So you restore my soul, so usually that means what? Oh, I'm free, rejuvenated. So real quickly, what happens next? He go, is that what's next? Go I walk? It leads me to the path of righteousness. So as you get to know Christ, right, you learn more. You know what it means to be righteous, right? And feel free to put in your text or your thoughts on these texts I'm going to bring down, because once again, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard sermons that are probably preaching to the choir. But if there's other aspects to Psalm 23 that you think I should include, let me know. Let me know. So he leads me to the path with righteousness, right? To learn more about righteousness, what it means to be holy. And which is very interesting, because guess what? Who questioned holiness also? Wasn't it Lucifer who questioned righteousness? Isn't that the whole reason why we have this war in heaven, this great controversy? Because I believe Satan never had an issue with God's power. In fact, he said, I want to be like the Most High. He never tried to be more than God. He recognized God's ultimate power, but it's not about God's power that makes God who God is. It's about who He is. If you think about it, the creation, right? Day one, what does God do? He speaks, He creates. Boom. He speaks, He creates. He speaks, He creates. Day 7, He speaks and creates. He rests. He says, you know what? I'm not using my power. I'm using it to spend time with man. Have you ever thought about that? When we think about how Satan does his things, he always forces, he always uses power. But when it was time to, and that's why the Sabbath is very important, because when we believe in the spirit of prophecy, it's going to be the Sunday law. I think it's not specifically a Sunday law, but this is just me personally. I think it's more the principles of the Sabbath, because not only does it go point to who the Creator is, remember God is the Creator, because God is always taken out. It's being taken out of the education system. Now it's politically incorrect to mention God in some assemblies, right? But all of a sudden, when you think about the principles of Sabbath, this was God, like, this is my power, you decide. I want to spend time with you. Like, you have a choice. He never, ever forced us, to like, love me or else. If I did that with my wife, I thought about it. Okay, honey, love me or else. But sadly, a lot of Christian churches teach that, right? If you don't love God, He's going to send you to hell. Where does it say that in the Bible? If you think about it, it's the wages of God's wrath. It's the wages of sin. That leads to death. Like Grandma was saying, it's our personal choice. That's what leads us to sin. That's which leads us to death. Anyway, going back to Psalm 23. So He leads me to the path of righteousness. What's next? Though I walk through the valley of shadow of death. Have you ever thought about that? Now, have you ever guys been to the valley of shadow of death? Think about terminology. The closest thing I can think about, if you've gone through California, there's what you call Death Valley. Super dry. You don't want to lose gas there because there's nothing there. But yeah, it's really dry. And you don't want to be there. It's definitely not Hawaii. It's definitely not the Philippines. It's not even New York City. There's nothing there. It's just desert. I don't want to be there. But look, notice the wording of the Bible. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Meaning to say, God will never allow us to go through the valley of death itself, but just the shadow. Meaning to say, sometimes we're walking like, man, this looks like Death Valley. It's so dry here. I'm so distraught. I'm so discouraged. Well, guess what? That's who Jesus is. He leads you through that shadow, through that darkness, through this valley that you think is the end of the world. But guess what? It's not, because Christ is there with you. He is the shepherd. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Has a rod ever comforted you? My dad told me, I'm going to give you my rod. Oh, I'm not comforted by that. What does that mean? That means discipline. That means punishment. Meaning to say, sometimes the way we view God, He's not actually trying to hurt us. Maybe He's just actually disciplining us. Maybe He's trying to help us learn a lesson. It should give us comfort that God allows hardships in our life, because that means He cares. That means He wants us to learn something. Because if everything was nice and dandy, that's something wrong, right? Isn't that they're saying? If you don't see Satan on the way against you, that means he's walking with you, right? Have you heard that saying? People say a Christian life will have challenges, will have hardship, because that's what Satan is trying to do. He's trying to like, hey, you're on the wrong side. You should be on my team. And God is saying, no, he wants to be on my team. There's nothing to fear, man. You're on God's team, right? That's what Christ
Baby,
says. So, Where are we at? Thy rod, thy staff, they comfort me. So not only is it a form of discipline to some people, maybe not to all, but guess what? It was a tool to protect the sheep back in their day. That's what David used to what? To protect from bears and lions. He also had a slingshot, obviously. But that was not just to protect what? That's why they have the hook at the end. You know, you see those little comedy shows, right? When the comedy act is horrible, they yank them out. Same with sheep. When they're straying too far, come back. But guess what? As a good shepherd, sometimes he lets the sheep stray. Sometimes they need to learn. But just like any good shepherd, for the sake of the one, God will leave the 99, right? To bring back that one. Let's think about that. Around thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me. That's awesome. I love eating. I don't know if you guys noticed, our church. Every Sabbath we try to eat. We like to celebrate. In fact, most Filipino celebrations, it's not a Filipino celebration without food. So something to think about there. And most cultures too, I think, is the same way. There's a celebration, there's food, right? So there's a celebration. Thou prepares a table before me in the presence of. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, I don't want to party in front of my enemies. Like, they're my enemies. Like, why would we just party? Like, and if you think about it, face value, is God like that? Like, oh, you have enemies? Let's have a party right in front of them. You're not taunting them, right? Like, that doesn't seem very godly, very Christian. So what does that mean? The wording. The table is prepared in front of my enemies. They're not God's enemies, they're my enemies. You can say those enemies are also God's children. They're not God's enemies. He's inviting them to take part in your blessed life so that they too may experience change. Doesn't that make more sense? That's who Jesus is in Psalm 23. Because guess what? That person who nearly hit me on my way here, who cut me off, didn't even use his blinker. Oh, I want to make that man my enemy, right? There's things I want to say to him. There are figures I want to show him right now. But guess what? Christ is saying, no, that person's going to eat with you and party with you. Like, ooh, it's kind of hard, right? And sometimes when I'm challenged, right, and people do me wrong, like, oh, sometimes there's a voice in my head that says, guess what, Jamie, that might be your neighbor in heaven. Like, oh, that's kind of hard. Like, can I be a good neighbor to someone like that? But you don't know where they're at unless you get to know them personally, right? That's who Jesus is as a good shepherd. He invites peace. Some people about that. And also, there's the whole argument like when you draw the line, when you defend yourself, things like that. But for the sake of this conversation of who Jesus is in Psalms, he has the spiritual journey that we all have. Any thoughts of wait, did we finish the text? Prepares the table and my enemies. So my cup runneth over. My cup overflows, right? So there's anointing that happens, right? When you're able to dine in front of your enemies, maybe say not just taunt them, but perhaps invite them. God can further bless you and anoint you. What does anointing mean? You're prepared for a ministry. You're prepared for special work. That's what anointing does. All of a sudden, you're a better example for Jesus Christ. You're a sheep that can help other sheep better, right? Once you come to that point. And guess what? Not only that, my cup runneth over. It overflows, right? When we say God blesses you so much that if you wanted to, you couldn't keep all the blessings. You have to share it. Like it becomes like, oh, there's no way I can keep all these blessings. Then we share it. Wouldn't that be nice? Especially here in New York City. Like, you have to make like what, 110, 120,000 a year just to survive in New York City? Like, I came from Arizona. I could make a quarter of that. And then all of a sudden, yay, I got a higher salary, but yay, I also spend more on bills and taxes. Like, wouldn't it be nice, Lord? Can I have the overflowing cup experience now? But sometimes the approach is like, oh, I just want to keep the blessings. When in fact, God is like, no, you need to be a channel of those blessings. You need to let that cup overflow, and people see Christ in you. Anyway, you could go on and on about Psalms 23. That's just a sneak peek, and you probably guys have heard even more better sermons on that. But think about this, right? This is who Jesus is in Psalms, at least in Psalms 23. So, once again, as we open the door, without even going into the gospel, like, how else is Jesus? What else does Psalms say about who Jesus is? So he's the good shepherd. Any other thoughts? I give you guys time to put in your input you have in here. I do have a question, but you guys are not going to ask questions. No question? Yes. His goodness and mercy. Okay, so let's break it down further. Goodness and mercy. So what is Mm.
Right? So we are children of God.
Mm.
So we must also represent God's character in everything that we do. Yes, it's hard at times, but His goodness allows us to do so.
Thank you so much. Yes. I was saying the goodness of God. Mm. That's how amazing we are when we hear music from heaven, right? Man, but yeah, right? The love of God constrained me. Like it keeps you, and it's not like you're forced to be good to your fellow neighbor, right? There's no commandment like that. It's let the love constrain you. You'll find out like, ooh, you know what? God loves others. He's a child of God. And there are many times when I did not want to be a child of God at the moment, like, can I be a child of God just for 1 second? You know, but no, let God's love overcome that. Let that, you know, let the good shepherd lead. Some things to think about. Any other thoughts? Okay, question. I have a question. As and thank you for guys sharing. What are ways that we can, on daily and practical level, take advantages of what is promised to us and having Jesus as a good shepherd? So we have that one example already, His goodness and mercy. But are there any other examples? Like, so it's pretty clear, right? We can look at Christ as our good shepherd, not a bad shepherd. He's a good shepherd, right? So how do we take advantage of that? Like we just talked about, right? The banquet from our enemies, there's the walking through the still waters and the green pastures, running through green pastures, and there's the, you know, so how do we take advantage of that? Do I have to go to like Colorado or to Florida to find those green pastures and lie down? Like, oh, okay, I'm claiming Psalm 23, but I need to go to Florida. So, practically speaking, yeah, how do we do that? Being silent. Trying to read this in right here. By being silent? Any thoughts? You guys want to meditate on that? It's deep, huh? It's deep. Okay. It's deep. It's deep. But yeah, what's already been said is already well said. We have a specific. We probably should end Sabbath school. I'll get confirmation. It's just like, you know, I think we're having a good conversation, even though you guys not. I mean, thank you for those that are sharing, but we can go on and on. But let's try to wrap things up. So there's a lot of the verses we can go in the Bible. Like, you know what? Let's go real quickly. Psalm chapter 2. Psalm chapter 2 in closing. Psalm chapter 2. Let's read those first 3 verses, I think. Whoever's there. Psalm chapter 2. And just the first 3 verses. Let's try and read please. Probably wasn't there as well. Okay, so today. Today I've been clouded. So what does that mean to you, Pastor? And when you read that, is it affecting you in a certain way? Like, I'll help you. It will help you. How do you understand it?
Nag-text sa akin si Fiscal. Sabi niya, sino dong cousin?
Yung father niya, pisan ko. Pamangkin ko siya.
Pamangkin. Okay. Sabihin ko, mag-text ako. Nag-video lang ako yan. Yung father pala niya, cousin. Okay.
At the same time, si Fiscal Black kasama so niyan. Pero hindi alam. Actually, kasi
Distance?
hindi, sa assignment, hindi ako lumaki. Kumaga, hindi ako lumaki sa illegal.
Siya din, mas more siya sa US eh.
Yun.
Ito siya.
Kasi yung tatay niya si Abulcar Alonto. Yun ang kinsan ko, si Abulcar Alonto. Tatay niya.
Yung father niya.
Once upon a time, had I heard Pastor,
dating speaker.
maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, it wouldn't have the same impact.
Ben,
Why now is it more different?
nag-video lang.
Because of our experience.
Dito siya lumaki din.
So maybe today, what Pastor Kelsey just said,
Kami din.
like, I'm gonna get pushback. It's
Davao,
because maybe you're not
Davao.
yet there. You're still on the journey. Maybe okay, keep my
Davao,
shepherd. You're still
Manila.
beginning to fight
Alam
the
mo
sheep.
naman.
Right? When Christ was saying,
Pero
keep my sheep, keep my
damdanak
lambs.
ko yan, pamangkin ko.
Then later to my sheep, you can say,
Tama.
there is growth as Christians.
Tuwagin natin pag tapos na.
I didn't get a goosebumps about Pastor Bell.
Ang FB yung governor ngayon.
It's a growing experience.
Ah,
We
pizza
have to
sila.
remember this as a church. Because I feel like a lot of the times, growing up, that's what I felt.
Sige.
My dad got awarded for getting 600 baptisms.
I think I have enough for this.
Oh, that's awesome. But what happened to those 600 people after that? Are they still growing? Because a lot of the time in our church, and we have this mission now this year, right? More in 2024 with evangelism, and I think Pastor will touch into that. But it's not just getting them to come in, right? We want them to stay, not just stay, we want them to grow. Right? We want them to realize that, hey, it's true too, that you are God's begotten even today. No matter what happened yesterday, no matter what happens tomorrow, the day you live, the day you are His son. You are not abandoned. He's always with you. You're right? And what speaks to me when I hear that also is Romans 8, 38, 39, right? For there is no power, right? There's no things present or things past that can separate me from the love of God, right? He's there, His love's there amazingly. But why is it people feel like there's people you can see and like, I don't think the love of God is in them. They need to say, it's not that God gave up on them. It's perhaps they gave up on God. So the probably the worst thing you can ever do is to give up on God. And there's like Psalm 89, which we won't go to. But if you were to read it based on it, it's like, wow, God hates His enemies. Like it's very, very strong language. But the way I understand it, because who God is, it's only strong because that person decided to walk away. And God is like, He's giving up on me. And it's just like I'm not a parent yet. Hopefully, we can pray about it if God blesses us. But, you have a child, right? When they make a mistake, do you punish them? I guess it depends. I remember my friend, there are neighbors in Texas. I won't say the name. But anyway, she dislocates her knee while we're playing. And the dad just got so mad at her. Man, why were you doing that? Well, she hurt her knee. So it's probably not the best parent example, but deep down inside his parents, right? If your child does something wrong, you're like, okay, did you learn your mistake, right? Do you want to repeat that mistake? Probably not. You're suffering consequences already. It's not like God is trying to add more punishment than you did this, that means spank you even harder. The worst thing we can do is for us to walk away from God. Isn't that what Christ experienced on the cross? My God, why are you killing me? No. I was not killing him. Why are you forsaking me? What sin does, it puts that separation. And God was never separated from Christ himself, but that weight of sin, it feels like you can't reach out to God. But He's always there. And that choice to not be able to reach out to God is our own choice. Something to think about. There are many more other lessons in Psalms. Thank you so much for everyone who participated. Really appreciate it. We'll stop the gospel lesson there and we'll have a closing prayer altogether. But before that, we'll have our missions. God bless you, Sister Joseph.